Hello, this is Dr. Eric Bricker, and thank you for watching AHealthcareZ. Today's topic is pharmaceutical and med device money to doctors. Now, it is a well-known fact that many physicians receive some sort of either compensation, or maybe they act as consultants, or maybe they just get meals bought for them by the pharmaceutical industry and by the medical device industry. But let's dig a little deeper into that statement, okay? So this huge number we have here with all these zeros, that is $2.4 billion. That is the amount of money that the pharmaceutical industry and the medical device industry spent on physicians in just 1 year alone, in 2015. And I will leave a link in the show notes for the source of information. Okay, what's that called? A lot of money, $2.4 billion. This is not a small amount. Okay, now, this is even more interesting. That $2.4 billion went to 450,000 physicians in America out of the total of 933,000 physicians in America. What's that called? Almost half. So, is it just a few doctors? No. Almost half of physicians in America take some sort of gift or payment or are compensated in some way by the pharmaceutical and med device industry. Now, the average amount is fairly small. However, let's break it down by types of payments. 1.8 billion went in terms of quote-unquote general payments. Now, interestingly, the largest form of that general payment was in food. So the way that pharmaceutical companies and med device companies get in front of doctors and form relationships with them and market or advertise them is through their stomachs, right? That's the famous saying, the way to a person's heart is through their stomach. So apparently that might hold true for physicians as well. All right, next. Interestingly, there was 544 million in stock options. Interesting. So if the stock of the pharmaceutical company improved, then the doctor benefited from that. And then there was 75 million in direct grants for research. So it's a very interesting breakdown of the types of payment. Now, when I was recently doing some of my continuing medical education credits, I noticed that many, if not all, of the online presentations that were done by various physicians at various prestigious medical schools across America that were doing these continuing medical education topics on things like cardiovascular disease and diabetes and emphysema and cancer, you name it, they too were being paid by the pharmaceutical industry. Let me give you two specific examples. I was watching one video that had Dr. Robert Gugliano from Harvard University. And Dr. Gugliano received payments and was a consultant or had other sorts of reimbursements from the following pharmaceutical companies: Amgen, Bristol Myers Squibb, GSK, which is GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, Pfizer, Sanofi. And interesting, one non-pharmaceutical company, he actually got money from CVS Caremark. Okay, he actually received money from more organizations than this, but I ran out of room. Okay, next. Dr. Peter Toth, who is on faculty at multiple institutions, the University of Illinois, Michigan State, and at Johns Hopkins. He receives money for being a consultant or receives honorariums, which is like being paid to be a speaker for Amgen, AstraZeneca, Novo Nordisk, which is one of the largest makers of insulin in the world. They're based in Denmark, and Sanofi as well. Now, during these continuing medical education classes, they were largely presenting the results of double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that actually got medications FDA approval. And it requires that type of randomized controlled trial or strict scientific method in order to get FDA approval. But here's the challenge. Just because something receives FDA approval, that doesn't mean that it's totally safe. They have to do phase 4 trials, which happens after the FDA approval, to see if it's safe for a longer period of time. And as many of you know, there have been many medications that have been subsequently taken off the market after FDA approval because they were found to have some sort of adverse side effect that they were not aware of prior to approval. Some examples of those are Vioxx, which is a pain medication, Zelnorm, which was for irritable bowel syndrome, and Meridia, which was a weight loss medication. The Vioxx increased cardiovascular deaths, Zelnorm led to liver damage, and the Meridia led to cardiovascular problems as well. So as I was doing these continuing medical education credits, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, they're presenting the science, but is it possible for them to not be biased by these payments against the possible adverse events or adverse side effects that occur after FDA approval? Now, it might be subconscious. I don't think they consciously say, hey, I'm going to ignore adverse events. But I don't know. Maybe it's kind of hard. Maybe it kind of biases you if you're getting paid by XYZ pharmaceutical company to call out the fact that that drug after FDA approval has some problems. I don't know. That seems to potentially cause some bias. And I want to make all of you aware of this. It is a hugely large number. It affects half the doctors in America, and it is involved in medical education by thought leaders in America. Now, there is a website called Open Payments. So just Google Physician Open Payments. It's done through the government. And it was actually part of the Affordable Care Act where physicians were actually required, and the pharmaceutical industry was actually required to disclose these payments. So you can look up your doctor, you can look up any doctor you want to see what payments they get. I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid. I'm not saying the pharmaceutical industry can't do this. It's America. It's a free country. However, we need to know about it. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying disclose it. And oh, by the way that we as consumers are supposed to protect ourselves is by going to that website and looking that up ourselves. That's right. The government wants us to be better consumers by looking that up ourselves. No one's going to spoon feed that to us. We got to do it to ourselves. The ball is in our court. The responsibility is ours to look this up. Now, if I saw a physician and saw that he or she was getting paid by a certain pharmaceutical company and then that person prescribed me that medication, would I scratch my head and potentially question that? Yes, absolutely. Now, that's just my opinion, but I wanted to share that with you today. Thank you for watching AHealthcareZ.